Bob Jones, your father, a prominent attorney in Atlanta, had been quite a baseball player at the University of Georgia. He was so good that the Dodgers offered him a contract. Did his playing golf influence you?
Yeah, my mother and I started to play golf in just about a month before I did. We moved out for the summer right near the East Lake Golf Course, and they took up golf, and I started tagging around behind them. And then a friend of the family one day gave me an old sawed-off iron club and a couple of balls, and I started knocking them up and down the dirt road in front of the house. And in a few months, I was allowed to get out on the golf course. That's the way I started.
How old were you when you first started to play golf?
About 6 years old.
And how old were you when you first took golf seriously?
Well, just as soon as I could play 18 holes. Golf was a game, and it was a game I liked, and any game is worth playing seriously and hard, and that's the way I played golf.
Who was the greatest golfer you ever saw?
Well, I wouldn't care to try to answer that, Cliff, because it gets into too many things. It's more than the best swing you ever saw, you know. It's the ability to get the figures at the right time and all that sort of thing. And I just don't think, again, that you can compare people from one era with people of another era because they have entirely different conditions to contend with. Ben Hogan said to me one time when he won the British Open at Carnoustie, I was in New York at the time, not realizing I'd get into all this hullabaloo, but when Ben won, all the newspaper fellows started getting after me. And all of them, of course, wanted a comparison of modern-day players with those of my day, and I tried to duck it as much as possible, but I went to a luncheon for Hogan when he arrived, and I was sitting next to him, and I said, Ben, I want you to understand that I did my best to avoid this thing. This was your day, and I wanted you to have it. And I certainly didn't try to make any comparisons. And he said, oh, Bob, I know how that is. He said, the way I feel about it, a man who can be a champion in one era can do it in another if he happens to come along at that time. So I said, well, I'm glad you understand. We'll just leave it at that. That suits me.
Thank you, Bob Jones. Cliff Evans reporting. Now back to Monitor at Radio Central. Bob Jones, there is golf, tournament golf, and major championship golf. And it's been said that the difference is 9/10 psychological. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I think that's probably true, and it's also probably true that the main factor in winning major tournaments is on the psychological side. In any field, there isn't much difference in the top 20 or 25 insofar as concerns their ability to hit a golf ball and to play different shots. The fellow who wins is the one who probably wants to win most and works hardest at it and resists that temptation to relax his concentration. And the man who's self-discipline is maybe the best, and who can try more consistently and harder than the other fellow.
Did you ever have any superstitions in golf?
Well, so not really seriously. I had some sort of halfway ones. I always hated to change my knickers if I was winning. Incidentally, knickers is not the right word. In Great Britain, those are only worn by ladies, but I mean +4.
Oh, we call them knickers here, too. Oh, sure. During the height of your competitive career between 1923 and 1930, did you have any special eating habits? Food or
Yeah, particularly in the middle of the day. Well, of course, in a tournament, I was so nervous in the morning, I couldn't take any food for breakfast. And I learned fairly shortly that it was better for me to have a little tea and toast than try to eat much in the middle of the day. Then I'd eat plenty at night.
Mm-hmm. You've won so many championships, you've enjoyed every honor in golf. Is it possible for you to put your finger on the most satisfying moment in your career?
Well, I can repeat. Sam Snead, several years ago in Augusta, one night we were all having dinner together, the Masters Club crowd, and Sam asked me, Bob, of all the championships you won, which one did you want to win most? And I said, Sam, it was the one I was playing in at the time, and if I hadn't felt that way, I probably never would have won any. So I think that's the best way I can answer you.
Well, that's the quality of great concentration.
It's the one that's there at the time that's the most important.
Thank you, Bob Jones. Cliff Evans reporting. Now back to Monitor at Radio Central. Bob Jones, it's been said that no one can play golf unless he has a correct, powerful, repeating swing. Can this really be learned to reach the top, or must one be a born golfer?
Well, I think a person needs a certain amount of the ability to coordinate mind and muscle, and I think that certain people have a sort of a natural talent for playing games, and other people don't have. It's just a sense of timing, or whatever you may call it. Ellsworth Vines said to me one day he thought that a man who could become champion in one sport could do it in another if he put his mind to it. Of course, there is a lot you can learn about golf. The basic fundamentals of the swing are fairly simple, and they're more or less invariable. It's the same for one man as for the other. But the repeating part of the business is probably the most important, to be able to reproduce the same swing, the same set of movements with enough regularity to where you can rely on the performance. Even if you make the same mistake every time, if you're consistent with it, then you've got some hope of controlling the overall result.
Would you say that for a person to be a good golfer, not a champion, would you say that one quality is so very important?
Oh, yes, yeah. The ability to reproduce the same set of movements and to know your own limitations so that you don't attempt shots that you can't bring off. To play well within your own limitations is very important.
You're a vice president of Spalding, and so, of course, you're very close to all facets of golf. During your playing days, there were approximately 100,000 women who played, and today the figure is 800,000 women golfers. Now, aside from driving, can a good female golfer compete on even terms with a good male golfer?
Can't say aside from driving, because the length is important. And the women never have been able to achieve the length and power that the best men players can produce. Of course, the women have improved tremendously, and the difference is not so great now as it used to be. But there still is the difference.
Thank you, Bob Jones. Cliff Evans reporting. Now back to Monitor at Radio Central. In 1930, when you scored the Grand Slam, never done before, and it's doubted that it ever will be done again, Was there any one reason why you retired, why you quit?
Well, I'd had in mind that that year would be my last really serious campaign in golf. You see, I was in the habit of playing in only 2 championships a year, except every 4th year when the Walker Cup team went to England, I'd go over there and play in the two over there. And I knew that I'd already made up my mind that it was time for me to settle down to the serious practice of law, and I was quite determined that this was going to be my last trip to England.